Not whack for no man.
Everywhere. They all know my
Gary.
name. What?
Nobody likes us. Nobody.
Why are you messing with the fantasy? We know about the reality. Don't ruin the fantasy, okay?
Dong. Dong.
Dong, Grandpa is talking to you.
CIA actually helped him write the books and write the script for that movie. And then the president of MPAA was actually providing intelligence to the CIA as an operative in that position in Hollywood.
Mr. Fleming, in your books there's a great amount of detail. Is this detail based on personal experience? Do you make it up? Where does it come from?
Well, I can say it's 90% from personal experience, really. Of course, if I started sticking too close to the true espionage work of today, I should be in trouble with the Official Secrets Act in England, even supposing I had access to information.
There's no
Hey.
Some sandwiches. I could make you one before you leave. How much lettuce do you want?
Please, throw down your guns.
Well, looks like the cows have come home to roost. How you doing, Trooper?
At the original Hebrew, it points to these sons of God as being fallen angels. And we all know that when Lucifer fell, he deceived a third of the angels who fell with him. Mankind was meant to rule this earth, but when we fell, Satan took over and started building his kingdom. Now, many don't believe that angels could mate with human beings, so they think this can't be true. But do you know that even the Apostle Paul speaks of this in 1 Corinthians chapter 11? From verses 1 to 11, Paul speaks of the authority of Christ over man and man's authority over women. But he says something very interesting when it comes to women in verses 9 to 10. He says that man was not created for the woman, but a woman for the man in verse 9. Then in verse 10, he says that a woman should have a symbol of authority on her, and this is the key phrase, because of the angels. Now, why would Paul say this if fallen angels were not able to take women and have relations with them? In fact, all of the holy angels like Gabriel and Michael and those angels, they would never ever defile themselves with women. So obviously they're able to do that. Now, Genesis 6 says that the offspring of these fallen angels and women produced giants. Other translations call these giants the Nephilim, which in Hebrew means the fallen ones. Now, these fallen ones were created by the union of fallen angels and humans, and they cannot be redeemed. This is because they are a mix of demon and human, having the spirit of a demon and not of a man. Satan was trying to physically corrupt the human race, to corrupt our DNA into his DNA. He also knew that Jesus was going to come someday in the human flesh, so he quickly tried to stop this. Jesus could only come through a physically pure human race, so Satan got to work right away to stop this. He knew that if he was successful in corrupting all of mankind, Jesus could not come. This is truly why the Bible says that men's hearts have become so wicked and grieved the heart of God. That's why all of men's thoughts in that day were only evil, as they had human bodies but demonic souls. Not only this, but verse 11 says that the entire earth had become corrupted, that all flesh was corrupted, but only Noah, his wife, their sons and their wives walked with God and were the last remaining pure human flesh. Bible scholars estimate that there were over 11 billion of these Nephilim beings on earth before the flood. Can you imagine? So now we can truly see what the days of Noah were and why the Lord had to bring the flood.
That's a little too close for comfort, lady.
Oh, damn.
What, you never seen a talking gargoyle before? Welcome to Illuminati headquarters. I mean, Denver International Airport.
This is awesome.
Hello? Do I know you?
The Denver airport, they have titans, giant monsters coming out from underneath the ground, like an art display.
Yeah, it's a mural, one of these predictive programming murals that's at the Denver airport. And it's a very creepy photo. And it does show the giants rising from the earth.
It is believed by some occultists that within the earth is a subterranean network of tunnels that lead to caves on the earth's surface. This tunnel system, in turn, leads to an underground world called Shambhala, a subterranean kingdom of the king of Shambhala, whose name, according to some theosophic sources, is Sanat Kumara. Some Christian researchers have pointed out that the name Sanat is an anagram for Satan. Sanat Kumara is called the Lord of this world, who is guiding the ongoing evolution of the Aryan root race. It is believed by some Illuminists that he rules the underground kingdom of Shambhala with other highly evolved humans, who are awaiting the appointed time to ascend to the surface and take over the world. Mount Hermon, an imposing peak in the Golden Heights, is known to some prophetical scholars as the gate of the fallen angels. It is believed that a group of angels entered the physical realm of Earth and landed on Mount Hermon. They committed an unforgivable crime that is recorded in Genesis 6. In time, when men began to multiply on the earth, and the daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive. They took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. They were the ancient heroes, men of renown. The site of Mount Hermon, being the entry point of the fallen angels, is recorded in the book of Enoch, a book that had standing with the apostles Jude and Peter. It says in Enoch, "And they were in all 200 angels, who descended in the days of Jared, on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon, because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it." The angels committed a forbidden act by mating with human women and producing hybrids that were giants. These giants and the Nephilim angels comprised a ruling race of that age, a satanic world order whose world religion was Satanism. As a punishment for these crimes, the world of that time was destroyed by a flood, and the fallen angels were imprisoned in deep underground dungeons. The following scriptures testify to the imprisonment of these fallen angels. For God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be reserved into judgment. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains, under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. During the ministry of Jesus, he and his disciples visited Caesarea Philippi, where the Jordan River springs forth from the slopes of Mount Hermon. One can see the grotto and cave where Baal worship was in full swing. While observing these shrines, Jesus posed a question: "Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?" Jesus was standing in the territory of his great enemy, Satan, and his idolatrous Nephilim. It was the area out of which the Antichrist would arise. It is fascinating that J.R. Church believes that the area around Mount Hermon, which is the territory of the tribe of Dan, is where the Antichrist will emerge.
I'm going to give it a go and cover this Mount Hermon. Again, I talked about it in the past many times. You can see its proximity here to Damascus on the map. And its exact location is key. It was, I believe, 1666 of all years, Louis XIV had declared the meridian points. And from those points, 33 degrees east of that meridian and 33 degrees north of the equator sits this exact spot, Mount Hermon. And what is important about this, even biblically, is this is where the fallen angels landed. This is an area that the UN swooped into, and they established a base up here. This is the highest peak in all of Syria. All of Syria, all the ancient land and ancient Damascus and everything there. This is the highest peak, 9,232 feet above sea level. Also, the slopes of it extend down into the Golan Heights, where Israel is occupying a lot of the territory. And in that region, there is the highest peak in all of Israel. It's 7,336 feet in elevation. Highest peak in all of Israeli-controlled territory. Now, back in the 70s, Israel and Egypt and them got in a fight, and Israel and Syria got in a fight, and the UN swooped in to this peak and established this base that they call Hermon Hotel. They can see in all directions for miles, and biblically, this being the place where Og had control, where the fallen ones landed, and also the territory of the ancient tribe of Dan. All of this connects right to this very area, and it's very interesting because a lot of biblical characters came to this area, talked about this area, referenced this area. And I think the most important thing to me that stands out about all this is they state time and time again that this is where the Nephilim landed. When you hear the stories of the giants on the earth in those days, this is where it all emanates from. This highest peak that they won't let no one up or around. You can only imagine what kind of monuments are sitting there, what's buried, and what they don't show people. Turkey is littered with it. They found the throne of Zeus there. The Germans took that brick by brick apart back to Germany with them.
The Church of Pergamos that Christ addressed in the Book of Revelation, chapter 2, where Satan dwells, the seat of Satan. And this is the seat of Satan, the ultimate demonic altar. Obviously Zeus was the heliocentric name of their chief god. The Canaanite name was Baal. It's one and the same, and the wickedness of worshipping this god was making their children pass through the fire, as we know the Israelites were deceived into it. Also, they would have homosexual, bisexual orgies. They used to worship Mother Nature and the sun. If you look at 2 Kings 23, it tells you that Baal is the sun god. So this abomination was excavated by a German in 1878 called Karl Humann, and he took it to Berlin. From Turkey to Berlin. As you can see, all these pagan, Greco-pagan gods that are basically demons, you see, that are work of men's hands. They're idols that have eyes and see not, and ears that hear not, and those that trust in them are like them. So the Germans took it to Berlin. Yeah, this is a place where they would have made the children pass through the fire, just pictured here, and it's in Berlin. Now, why would they move the seat of Satan, excavate it and move it to Berlin in the late 1800s? Well, it seems to suggest from some initial studies I've made that the Holy Roman Empire, which I believe now to be the second beast of Revelation 13, the power base is Berlin, Germany, and we know that the Nazis rose up the Third Reich. Obviously the Holy Roman Empire was the First Reich, if you look into it, from 962 to 1806, and the Pope was the kingmaker. Well, however, this guy Rosenberg, he was kind of like the wicked spiritualist theologian. He was inspired by the witch Blavatsky, and he viewed Christianity as weak because he said he refuted the concept of original sin and the immortality of the soul. So he's clearly a demonic individual, inspired by another demonic witch, Blavatsky, who was an occultist. He was in on this major witchcraft that was going on behind closed doors in the 1800s, and previously before that you have these Rosicrucian manifestos that also heralded this universal reformation of mankind with this secret science that they were going to implement on the public when they believed that they were going to be ready for it during a time of great turmoil. Okay, this is 17th century occultism, and then we have now the New World Order, which seems to be built on all these wicked teachings, because the Theosophical Society's objectives were to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste and colour, which is, if you look at Genesis 11, reminiscent of reversing what the Lord did in the Tower of Babel. He came down and confounded their language, because the whole earth was one language and one people. So the reversal of these demons through the seances with their witches clearly is to reverse what the Lord did at the Tower of Babel and the city that was built being Babylon. So we see here the statue of the false prophet with all these declarations where they bring people together with the European Union. We see there the stars of the European Union the right way up, where they were inverted before in the form of this demonic pentagram earlier.
This is Obama's stage at the Democratic Nominating Convention in Denver in 2008, designed to look like a Greek temple. It's strange enough that Obama made a temple his stage, a place of worship, but Obama's nomination temple appears to be modeled after the Pergamon altar, a special place. This is a Pergamon altar which is on display at the Pergamon Museum in Berlin, Germany, only a few hundred yards from the place where Obama gave a speech a couple of months before the convention. The Pergamon altar is special because it is mentioned in the biblical book of Revelation, and is called in Revelation the seat or throne of Satan. The Greek god Zeus and pagan idols were worshipped at Pergamon. However, more importantly, Caesar Augustus, the ruler of Rome, was worshipped as a god at Pergamon. An early Christian named Antipas was sacrificed there because he refused to worship the pagan gods of Pergamon. Antipas was burned alive at this altar inside a hollow bronze bull. Hitler's architect, Albert Speer, also modeled the tribune at the Zeppelin field in Nuremberg after the Pergamon altar.
This fact is mentioned in the documentary film The Architecture of Doom. This is the Zeppelin field at Nuremberg, one of the sites where Hitler had his National Reichstag rallies.
Connecting the Nazi Hitler going to Antarctica thing.
Dr. Hermann Oberth, who pioneered a rocket design for the German Reich and later for the American manned space launches, once cryptically stated, and I quote, "We cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped." When asked by whom, he replied, and again I quote, "The people of other worlds." Werner von Braun was a famous German aerospace engineer and spacecraft architect credited with inventing the V-2 rocket for Nazi Germany and the Saturn V for the United States. He echoed similar knowledge of a Nordic-looking extraterrestrial influence when he stated in 1959, and I quote, "We find ourselves faced by powers which are far stronger than hitherto assumed, and whose base is at present unknown to us. More I cannot say at present. We are now engaged in entering into closer contact with those powers, and within 6 or 9 months' time it may be possible to speak with more precision on the matter." Just who were the people of other worlds that both of these esteemed German scientists spoke of so nonchalantly? The medium Maria Orsic was leader of the German Vril Society. In pre-World War II Germany, the Sisters of Vril conducted research into psychic phenomenon, advanced propulsion technology, and this included saucer-shaped aircraft, or UFOs as they're still called by the media 70 years later. The Vril Society, whose members included some who would later become notable members of the Nazi Party, believed that many ancient civilizations owed their origins to refugees from Atlantis. They advanced the idea of a subterranean civilization ruled by an ancient parent race who had mastered technology called Vril, and this breakaway civilization was said to have survived antediluvian cataclysms which ended the Ice Age, and they continue to thrive below the surface of the earth. While it is widely accepted that the Nazis were defeated with Germany's formal surrender in 1945, this is only partly true. The Nazi elite were able to covertly develop craft that were far in advance of anything possessed by the Allies and establish a secret subterranean base in Antarctica, New Schwabenland. New Swabia, or New Schwabenland in German, is an area of Antarctica called Queen Maud Land. It was explored by numerous German Antarctic expeditions, and one in the late 1930s reportedly discovered ice-free areas with warm freshwater lakes and signs of growing vegetation right there in the middle of the barren ice. The Nazi Party proceeded to covertly build a massive secret subterranean base in the large hollow caverns which have naturally formed deep under the Antarctic ice.
Admiral Byrd, you've been to both the North Pole and the South Pole. Is there any unexplored land left on this Earth that might appeal to adventurous young Americans?
Yes, there is. And not up around the North Pole, because it's getting crowded up there now, because they find out it's really usable, not only to live in, but militarily. But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America. And it's, I think it's quite astonishing that there should be an area as big as that unexplored.
That's a tremendous
So
challenge.
there's a lot of adventure left down at the bottom of the world.
The Jotnar.
Although they might more commonly be known as giants, and generally portrayed in popular culture as hulking creatures that are the enemies of the gods, the Jötnar's actual role in Norse mythology is slightly more nuanced than that. While it is true that most of the Jötnar were opposed to the Aesir gods living in Asgard, and will ultimately battle them in a great war at Ragnarok, pop culture has taken extensive liberties with the residents of Jotunheim. This video will cover what exactly the Jötnar are, as well as certain individual Jötnar within Norse mythology. First, to clear up a misunderstanding involving the term giant. The Old Norse word, Jotun, used to describe the inhabitants of Jotunheim, derives from an older Germanic word meaning consumer or devourer. As languages developed over the years, and English began borrowing words from other languages, the term giant became the dominant word for describing the enemies of the gods in various mythologies, including Greek mythology. While you might often hear the Jötnar referred to as giants or frost giants, this is hardly an accurate description. So what exactly are the Jötnar? In many ways, rather than being a different type of entity than the gods of Asgard, they can be seen as a different family of the same species. Jötnar can vary in their descriptions quite a bit, as some are known for their great strength, while others, such as Loki, are more known for their intellect. Some did closer resemble what we imagine giants to look like, while others were known for their incredible beauty. Many of the Jötnar are capable shapeshifters, with Loki being renowned for his skill, and are also capable of casting illusions and other tricks, such as the Jotun Utgard Loki. As you can see, there's no clear, easy definition for the Jötnar, and their appearance and role in a story can vary wildly. The Jötnar are often regarded as the enemies of the Aesir gods, continually making efforts to invade Asgard, kill the gods, or take the goddesses as their wives. Thor, god of thunder and son of Odin, is usually the principal defender of Asgard, and often goes on trips to hunt Jötnar. Many of the Jötnar fear Thor and his mighty hammer, and believe there is little they can do to stop him. They are seemingly capable of stealth or other tactics, as they managed to steal Thor's hammer while he was sleeping in Asgard. Only one Jotun ever challenged Thor to a duel, and he was easily dispatched. There are many examples, however, of the Aesir gods and the Jötnar coexisting in some fashion. Both the Aesir and the Jötnar come from the same place, the mixture of ice and fire in the great void at the beginning of time. Ymir, the first giant, created the Jötnar, and the great cow brought about the first Aesir god. Odin was born from the relations of a god and a Jotun, and many of the Aesir throughout Norse mythology would end up marrying and having children with Jötnar, including Thor himself. Loki is a Jotun that formed a blood bond with Odin, allowing him to walk among the Aesir in Asgard, and often appear in tales with Thor and others. Aegir and his wife Rowan are two Jötnar that live in a majestic hall underneath the ocean, and often host great feasts for the gods. On one occasion, Thor spent the night at the home of a Jotun and went fishing with him the next day, although he did end up slaughtering him along with many other Jötnar. Mimir is another of the more notable Jötnar, if he is actually meant to be a Jotun. Practically no existing sources explain what Mimir is, but as he apparently dwells in Jotunheim, some believe him to be an exceptionally wise Jotun. Mimir is the master of a well located in Jotunheim, underneath one of the roots of the world tree, Yggdrasil. This well contains wisdom and intelligence, and bestows these qualities upon those who would drink its waters. This is the source of Mimir's wisdom, and Odin sought to drink from this well himself. Asking Mimir for a single drink from the well, Mimir agreed, but required one of the all-seeing eyes of Odin as a pledge first. Odin plucked one of his eyes from his head, placed it in the well, and then drank deeply, becoming even wiser. Later,
After the war between the Aesir gods and the Vanir gods, the two sides traded hostages to live among the other tribe, as was the custom. The Aesir sent Heinir to Vanaheim, as the Vanir gods believed him worthy to be a chieftain, along with Mimir. They immediately made Heinir a chieftain, and found that he provided incredibly wise advice for any issue presented to him, but failed to notice that it was actually Mimir counseling him. When Mimir wasn't with him, and they asked Heinir a question, he could only respond with, "Let others decide." After enough occasions of Heinir only responding with that unhelpful advice, the Vanir believed that they had been cheated in the treaty, and so they went to Mimir, beheaded him, and sent the head back to Asgard. Odin took the head of Mimir, embalmed it with herbs, and chanted magical phrases over it. This gave Mimir's head the power to speak, and Odin would often bring it to his ear for counsel. At the time of Ragnarok, the Jotnar will launch their great attack against Asgard, led by Loki at the helm of the Ship of the Dead. With the assistance of the fire god Surt and the Jotnar of Muspelheim, they will ravage Asgard and lead to the destruction of the cosmos.
The giants in the earth being released from their cells, basically, the pits opening, things are coming out. All this stuff is, a little too fantastical for most people to even contemplate. When you think of the verse, men's hearts will fail them for what's coming on the earth, if you saw a bunch of giants popping up and walking through your neighborhood, you think some people might have some coronaries? Based on that? I think so. It really stimulated, as in the days of Noah, is very literal. The flood destroyed the giants, and as we've said in the past, Apotheosis show, the hybrids and children of Cain are manufacturing these hybrid armies. They basically look to do away with those that possess the temple, which is the Christian population. So just as the giants were wiped out in the flood, they seek to wipe out Christianity from the face of the earth and have the Luciferian or the Antichrist age. And we're seeing it all in these movies.
The movie Cell that you sent me was quite interesting with how they are getting attacked with a certain pulse. And then there are certain people, I guess these are the people that represent the ones not sealed by God, become zombies, and they are manifested with demons, and they kill the other people in the movie. And then the symbolism on one of the front covers with the eye in the tower that you pointed out to me, that the eye looks like Saturn, and then the portal going up to the eye like the Birkeland currents was very interesting. But
there's a new Netflix cartoon that is conditioning people to take the mark of the beast. Sounds crazy, I know, but it's true. It shows just how easy and fast it is to have this machine print something that looks like an RFID tattoo, and they call it the Smart Mark. Continue to say how you can use it for shopping, to book your travel, or even use it as a video camera. This reporter lady interviews this gal, and